It's time now for the award-winning #1 local talk show in Northeast Pennsylvania, The Sam Lesante Show. Now here's your host, Sam Lesante.
Thanks, my friends, for joining us. I'm Sam Lesante. And folks, I'm taking you on a journey of trying to educate you as to what's going to happen 2018 in the elections. And what we're doing is we have people coming on who are talking about their concerns as to why they want to run for office. Today I have Bob Kuniegel. Bob is running in the 17th Congressional District, Republican ticket. And Bob is here today to tell us why you should vote for him for the 7th Congressional District. Bob, thanks for coming on the show.
I'm grateful for having the opportunity to talk to your audience about politics.
And we always said, a friend of mine said to me many years ago, Bob, good politicians make for good government, and that's, notice I said good politicians. Bob, for people who know you, they know, you have a tremendous background here. Tell us a little bit about who you are, your background and, something about your family and et cetera.
Well, I think the story does start with my, three of my grandparents were immigrants. Two came from Poland, my Georgi and Babki, as we call them. And my another grandfather on my mother's side came from Sicily. And my grandmother, she was what you would call a Heinz 57, but predominantly Welsh, if there was anything, maybe 20%. I was closest, I think, to that grandmother. She had some really neat sayings, like talk is cheap, but it takes money to buy beer. Now, she wasn't a drinker, but that's the same as, people talk, but it's the deeds that they do that make the difference. And I have a number of deeds that I did over the years that I think tells a little bit about myself.
Share some of them with us.
Well, when I was in my 20s, Lackawanna County was going to build a recycling center, and I was interested in recycling. Since I was young, I knew that it was something that people should do. So I called the architect and I offered my services, and he actually hired me as a volunteer to go look at different places, and I had some input on the Lackawanna County recycling plant. And then later on in my career, when I was a corrections officer, after about 3 or 4 years, they give you an opportunity to take an unpaid sabbatical if you like. So I took 4 months off, and I was very interested in Theodore Roosevelt because I feel that he's an excellent role model. And I purchased books that were out of copyright and scanned them and put them on the internet. I have a website, tramericanpatriot.com. There's nothing for sale on that website, or there's no advertising. It's just free books by Theodore Roosevelt, people that knew him, American history books. And I've done some other things in my life that are civic-minded.
You have a college education, so this opportunity that you're looking at, you got a challenge here you want to run for U.S. Congress. I'm sure you know all the, what you're going to be involved with. So what was the reason why, you decided that you want to run for Congress? And what did your wife of 43 years, you've been married 43 years, that's an accomplishment. What did she think when you told her that?
Well,
other
actually,
than you're crazy,
Actually, no. She's been telling me my whole life that I should run for office because she knows that's where my interest has been. I've always had an interest in national politics. And I don't know, maybe it's because when I joined the service, you take an oath to defend and protect the Constitution of the United States. And I wasn't in Vietnam, but I was in the service during that time period. I was in the Navy. And I went to the Mediterranean. We didn't go to Nam. But that might be some of what gives me an interest in national politics, making early choices, whether you were willing to fight and die for your country, because at one time when I was a junior in high school, I thought that I might be a Marine. I don't take choices like that without really thinking about them. But what really got me interested, now that I have the time being retired, I've provided for my family. That's the first thing you have to do in your life. And I have the time now, and I am totally disgusted with the corruption in government. Totally disgusted. It's become a national security issue, actually, all of the corruption. And I'd like to do something about it. I only have one fight left in me, and I want to fight for America, for the next generation.
Well, you have here, you said, I'm running for Congress because I'm totally sick about the in-your-face corruption in Washington, okay? So, and I guess that's probably what Trump's theme is, draining the swamp. And he's having a difficult time with the media because they like what it is, and their old friends are there, in my opinion. So you saw this, okay? So now, all right, having a thought of saying, I'm tired of it, what do you intend to do about it if you should become a congressman?
Well, I have two proposals, and maybe I should go into my blue-collar working history. I think
Yes.
that leads into the
Right.
why I have two proposals. One hat that I wore all through my life was a laborer. I do construction work. I actually build places too for futuristic houses, energy-efficient homes. I got into that later in life, but I've always had a blue collar on, and I've also had a white collar on for 33 years. We started a hair salon and have kept 5 people employed over the years, and that's gave me a lot of experience with business. One of the main things wrong with business right now, people don't really want to talk about it, but we have a hard time finding employees because the government is paying people not to work.
Isn't it sad?
It really is. It really is.
No work ethics.
Well, you can't really blame the people if the government's giving it to them.
Sure.
I have a background too. I had a great Uncle Billy. He was great, but he taught me like the wilderness and hunting and things like that. If you take a wild animal and you feed it, you know, it's not going to provide for itself. So we're providing for people, and we're stealing their incentive off them to work.
Yeah, Bob, you know why that is. Why they like to have people depend on them is because they want the votes.
Exactly.
And that's what you're having right now with the extreme left going crazy because the economy is growing, people are getting more jobs, and you're 100% correct. And so the more you can give people things for nothing, well, the more they're going to vote for you. Well, when that stops, you earn what you're saying. But here again, and Bob, we had some discussions you and I had on the phone. When you're looking at people, okay, who need help, we're there to help them. And
Correct.
I think you feel that way.
Correct. You really have to. My grandmother, she worked in a dress factory when I knew her growing up, but at some point in her history, she had received welfare. Maybe it was during the Depression or sometime before that, but she got off welfare, and she worked the rest of her life when she was old. It should be a helping hand, not a lifestyle. That's where we make the problem, and it's short-sightedness on politicians' mindset. And actually, I have a proposal that actually deals with that a little bit. But let me go back to the construction background. I've taken some shacks, actually, and I've turned them into things, not hiring architects, but looking at the problem, what had to be done, and figuring out solutions. And in construction, if you're good at it, you build tools to make your job easy. And I was good at it, so I have a number of properties that I've remodeled. They're energy efficient. I came up with solutions during the energy crisis. I studied, well, what could I do to be more energy efficient? That was during the Carter years, 70s. And one of the things I found was masonry mass inside a home is an excellent way to conserve energy. So I've incorporated that into most of my homes. But it's a matter of solving problems. So my background gives me that opportunity to look and see, hey, there's a problem here. We have all of this corruption. What can we do to try and do something about it? One of the things is we need more people involved. So I was on the internet while I was at the University of Scranton. I worked 11 years at the University of Scranton, getting my daughters a free education when I gave up labor union construction work. And I also attended school at that time and received a bachelor's in criminal justice. But I was on a discussion group, and over a period of several years, we discussed seriously how to build an electronic town hall and the merits of it.
Electronic town hall.
Yes.
Okay.
What that is, it gives the people a way to become involved discussing issues. And there's several different levels to it. They not only discuss issues, they discuss them with the opposite side. So you would have Democrats and you would have Republicans discussing issues. And it would be all documented because you'd be doing it in writing on the internet, and then other people would look at it, all the information, and they would give an opinion, and that would be an informed opinion poll, which is completely different to what the media uses to manipulate people today.
Bob, folks, if you just tuned in, I'm talking to Bob Kuniegel, and his website is congresspa.com. congresspa.com. Phone number for Bob, and the reason why I'm giving you a phone number is we're looking for some petitions he'd like to get signed, and his number is 570-842-8043. And remember, download the app, SSP TV, and you can watch this show anywhere to learn about who's running for office. And so it's congresspa.com. Phone number is on the screen, 570-842-8043. I didn't mean it, but I want people to know that they, as they're going through the channels. So, Bob, the electronic town hall. So this is interesting. That how would people then become involved with this?
Well, the first thing we have to do, and I'm hopefully we're not going to have this for my tenure. If I make it in Congress, it will take a few years to set up. The mechanics of it isn't that hard. The first thing I have to do is educate the people, telling them that there is an information age solution, and describe that we have a need for it. And when the people decide that, yes, I want this, it could be built easily. So that's some of the mechanics of making it happen. It's just a matter of desire on the part of the people, but they don't really understand what it is yet. And when you have an informed opinion poll, then you can sift through a lot of the garbage.
Sure. Yeah.
And then other people can come along and look at the informed opinion poll and look at the major points. They could look at the whole thing if they want, because it's all documented. And then you could really start to deal with issues, because you'll have people with good ideas that are going to have a voice, because other people look at their ideas and they say, yes, I like that. And then the politicians would listen.
You know, it's interesting because here you are, Bob Kuniegel, running for Congress in the 17th Congressional District. I'll make sure you get that correct. Now, you know, you're retired. You worked. You have a good operation business. So why do you think it's important? I mean, I'm running these shows. Yes, they're paid for, but I'm running the shows to try to educate people to who they're putting in office, because it affects our lives, as you saw. So here you are, you're married 43 years, you could just live the life of Riley, as they say. Why is it so important for people, number one, to see who's running for office, and number two, why they should get involved, either voting or become involved?
Well, the coming involved is easy for me, I think, to answer. I just reread a book that I have on my bookshelf at home. It's President Adams, our second president. And he was one of the architects of the Constitution. And he basically set up the three systems, or three individual areas of government. And one of the keys to it, though, was that the Congress was supposed to be close to the people, and the people were supposed to have a real voice. And that's what was one of the checks on the whole system. That is out of whack today. The Congress is pretty much aristocrats. They don't really have to talk to the people to get elected. All they need to do is get enough campaign money to turn out 10-second sound bites and put signs in the yard and things like that. So my working class background, I see that one of the tools we need is to get the people involved, and I'm completely convinced that the electronic town hall is something that will happen in the future.
Currently, you have Congressman Matthew Cartwright, okay, as the congressman, okay. Evidently, you don't agree with what he's doing. What are some of the areas that you feel or that you would correct?
Well, I'll talk about the lesser one first. I went to one of his town hall meetings last year, and it was a very long infomercial about what he and the government is going to do for the people. In other words, make the people dependent on the government and not have them be self-sufficient. And there was nothing about involving the people in any of the solutions. Well, if the people aren't involved in the solutions, they're not going to trust what the government puts out. And if it should be a partnership, the people and government, and we're not going to have that. We're not going to solve any of our problems as long as the people do not trust the government. Then it's the electronic town hall to get people involved. But the other thing that I'm concerned about Matt Cartwright, and he's not alone in this, there's a lot of complacency in that there's a lot of corruption, and people of both parties are guilty. Right now the Democrats are on stage more than the Republicans, but there are some Republicans that need to be outed. But Matt Cartwright is completely silent on all of the corruption that is taking place in the upper echelon of the Democratic Party. And if you are silent about crime, you're enabling it. It only, what's the saying that for crime to prevail, all that's needed is a good person to do nothing. Mm-hmm. So by him not doing anything to speak out against the crime in the Democratic Party, mm-hmm. He's part of the problem.
Mm-hmm. So you don't think he's fulfilling his job as a congressman?
No, and he's an obstructionist. All of the things that President Trump wants to do for America, the Democrats can find nothing to help him with. That tells you something about what's going on. It's really sad.
Well, you know, it's interesting because when I talked before, I said, you know, when you become the party guy and you pat your people on the, tell the jokes and you go in and everybody likes you, it doesn't mean that you have the substance to become a congressman as well as a doctor. Unfortunately, that we have people who are misled by these, the nice guy routine, the nice woman routine, etc. Instead of saying, oh yeah, well, nothing against them, but let's look what you've done. And you just mentioned a few things about Matthew Cartwright that, people may or may not know. Now, he comes from Scranton, and it's been a solid Democrat, no matter, I don't think Jesus would win if he was a Republican. But the point is, how do you address that? How do you address the fact that and I know there's nothing personal, right. You're talking fact, because you've done it all your life. How do you address that?
Well, I think people have to, on several levels, I think, go back to George Washington. In George Washington's farewell address, he said that he feared parties. There wasn't a party system when he was president, but he thought enough of it to tell the American people that he feared parties because people would vote for party before country.
Isn't it true?
Yes, his fear has come true.
Yes.
But I don't. What was the other question?
The point is that how do you overcome? Okay, because here you are, Bob Kuniegel.
Yeah.
I mean, people who you work for, people in your neighborhood, they know who you are. Okay, now you're on TV, and people are saying, well, "Who is this Bob Kuniegel, and why does he want to run for Congress?" Which you've explained. And the idea is, and here again, we bring up the fact that what you say is not. This is nothing personal. It has to do with what is being done. Okay. There are many areas that I think you'll be able to challenge Matthew Cawthorey on, but the point is his actions speak louder than words. You don't agree with that, okay? You want to move into a different direction, I assume, right?
Correct.
Bob Kuniegel, folks, is the person I'm talking to. He's running for Congress in the 17th Congressional District. CongressPA.com is where you can get a lot of information about Bob. His phone number, and the reason for the phone number is 570-842-8043. He'd like to get some petitions signed, and that happens from when to where? February?
That's one of the obstacles that the incumbents use to keep people out of office, challenging. I only have 3 weeks to do it. In the middle of the winter, February 13th to March 3rd. So if anybody could get, they would have to be a registered Republican. If anyone could get 10 Republican signatures, contact me. I'll get you a petition, and that would be a big help because I do need 1,000 valid Republican signatures collected by a Republican from the district.
Yeah. So that's why, folks, the phone number is there, 570-842-8043. Staying on, again, about you had a few things that you talked about. You were also talking about drug testing and another area that you feel Congress should be involved with?
Yeah, from my background as a state correctional officer and the history, I know when I see criminals in action or people being manipulated by criminals, and there's so much that's going on. I believe this Comey and Mueller should be in jail someday, and Jeff Sessions, I think he's being controlled by somebody unless President Trump has him on a short leash for some reason. He looks really suspect. So my working man's solution for that is, and I will submit to this, I'm going to Congress, these people need to be drug tested and they need to be given the opportunity to have a polygraph test once a year. You can't force them, but the voters need to know if they have something to lie about. Just offer it and see what they say. So I'm going to sign that proposal right here. And I have a proposal for the electronic town hall that I'm going to sign and leave with you, Sam. So you know my personal commitment. I hope people go to the website and look at these. They should be up soon. But back to Matt Cartwright and what could I do in a democratic town to be elected. I think if the people look at my working history and a little bit more of my history, I belonged to unions at various times in my life. I grew up in a union household. My father was president of Capitol Records Union for years, one of the biggest unions in Scranton. So I have a respect for that. I have a respect for the working class people. I supplement my income with Medicare and Social Security. I'm not a person that's going to take anything away from the people I know or myself that need that. But they've put in our country, all of these social programs that are great have been put in so much jeopardy by people doing backroom deals and being controlled and blackmailed. God knows what they're doing. JFK papers that just came out talks about Operation Mockingbird. where you understand, if you understand that government program, why the media is so biased. So
What do you think that is? Because I heard Rush Limbaugh the other day saying, you know, that they want socialism. Of course, that's what they want. This is what Rush said. But I'm embarrassed to say that we're in the media, particularly when you see all of the fake, as they say, fake news, and what they're doing to try to destroy a president, don't even respect the office. And yet all the successes, they're not looking at all the successes that has already happened in your country. And I think that's unfair. What's your opinion on that?
well, I think issue 3 on my website, I have a 16-point platform. Issue 3, I do talk about some of the problems with the media, and it makes, if you follow the web links on issue 3, you will see where wars have been started with fake news.
And folks, this is the, it's very interesting. It's, go to his website, congresspa.com, from fiscal responsibility, social security, and unlocking media bias, internet political censorship, responsible immigration policies. It just goes on and on. Informed opinion polls. You see, what you're trying to do is get people involved, and they don't want that. You see, the people who are in control, they don't want people to get involved. That's why they want to give them everything, okay? That's my opinion.
They want to keep the system exactly,
exactly
like it is now.
Judging people by the content of their heart versus the color of their skin. Here again, they play the African Americans against the whites, and then Hispanics, etc. And from what I understand, there are more African Americans working today than ever before, more so than the Obama administration, and more Hispanics working, okay, having opportunities. So a square deal for unions, industry, small businesses, farmers. This is, you know, a conservative guided by common sense maxims, which I think is, you know, these are very important, folks. Once again, learn about what's going on. But the phone number, if you want to talk to Bob, is 570-842-8043. He needs petitions signed because, as you said, I didn't know that until you were telling me that, you know, the incumbents always have something that is interesting. It's a challenge. It's going to be a challenge for you, Bob, you know.
Yes, it is. I will say something, too, about all the issues that I talk about on the website. I wrote that up in 2 days. I didn't take any type of opinion poll to try and figure out what to talk about. Everything on my website came from my heart. It's things that I believe, and I'm sure that if people read them, they're going to identify with those same issues because it's coming from a working man's perspective. We're closer to the problems, so we know what needs to be done. And that's why you'll see, if you read those 16 points, you're going to agree with a lot of them just on the topics. And get into them, click on them, and see what I have to say about them.
Mm-hmm. Well, how old are you?
I am 67 years old right now.
Yeah,
I will be 68 soon.
And the reason I ask you that is because what you're doing is there are many seniors out there who depend on the government. And when you start scaring them and telling them they're going to lose their Social Security, you're going to lose Medicare, you're going to lose Medicaid. I mean, I saw on the news a couple of weeks ago in Scranton where they, Matt Cartwright and Bobby Casey were there, and you know, and the one lady said, I can't lose my Medicare, I can't lose the scare tactics, okay, which is, it's so sad, Bob, that they have to lower themselves to this, okay? Just like the pro-life. They say they're pro-life, but they vote everything for Planned Parenthood to kill as many babies as you can. I mean, it's just crazy. In closing, you got about 30 seconds left. Tell the viewers why they should vote for Bob Kuniegel.
Well, I'm honest. I'm telling you exactly what I think. And that will tell you what I will do. I will look at things to be fair. And I think that's all American people want, is a fair deal.
Well, we hope we'll see you again on the show. I wish you the best. Thanks for giving me a call and coming on the show. Bob Kuniegel, folks. The name that you're going to listen to, Bob Kuniegel. CongressPA.com. Don't forget, you really need some help with petitions, only because that's the way, I wouldn't say rigged, but that's the way it is. 570-842-8043. We'll see you next time.